Hello legends, how we doing? So, Middleton has put out this let's just call it a call for action. So I thought we'll get into it. We'll have a look about all this kind of the freedom of speech marches and these big gatherings, and then we'll dig a bit deeper behind these calls for action or these gatherings and see what else we should really be factoring in. Let's get into it. Hello team, how we doing? I hope this finds you firing, and I hope it finds you in another day in paradise. And if not, I hope you find your way back there. So, first off, massive thank you for all the wonderful supportive comments I've received since I appeared on the Richie Allen show. Was it earlier this week? Was it actually end of last week rather? Good chat, Richie. Got deplatformed because of all the medical nonsense, I seem to remember. But yeah, he very kindly let me go on there and not just talk about my upcoming Mount Everest summit to shine a light for our struggling veterans, but also to raise awareness of the elephant in the room, folks. Why is no one, considering we have all these veterans taking their own lives, why is no one talking about childhood trauma, which a lot of us joined up with? Childhood trauma, which later becomes complex trauma, doesn't it? When you layer on top the events and your experiences in later life, you end up with this complicated network of traumatizing events, and subsequently you start to develop coping problems or maladapted coping mechanisms, this kind of thing. And you know, so long as we keep looking at PTSD as only something military people get, and only if they've been through something like Rambo, then we're going to keep losing people because they're afraid to come forward and say, look, I need help, but I wasn't actually in combat, or I was in combat, but it didn't traumatize me. Do you understand what I'm saying, folks? We're not saying here that you can't get traumatized in conflict. Obviously you can. We're asking the question, why is it that so many veterans have an inability to cope with daily life on release from their service? And research would suggest it goes a little bit deeper than just what you experienced in service. So thank you to everyone that sponsored me a $5 to help me shout this message from the highest peak on the planet. I'm going to start asking people to like and subscribe, folks, because I always forget, and when I forget to say it, we don't get any subscribers. And I said to Richie, we're the second best podcast. We're the second best podcast out there. I had to say that, didn't I? Because I was on his show, and you want to be polite. But no, I truly believe it, folks. You're not going to hear people explain what's going on in this once great nation and understand who's behind it all. So that said, let's speed up. Let's get into it. Right. This is a tweet Ant put out. I thought someone had photoshopped it at first when I saw it, because it's pretty it's pretty hard hitting. On the 13th of September, he's referring to this free speech gathering in London that I think Tommy is heading up or leading. I might have got that wrong. I will ask something of the British public, British patriots, that I would never ask of if I weren't willing to lead the charge. If certain individuals can ask for our throats to be with zero accountability or repercussions, then that allows us free rein to defend ourselves in such a manner that will rattle foreign hostiles and our government to the very core. Can I just say at this point, for the sake of the podcast, folks, I'm not suggesting this. I'm just reading Ant's tweet. Choose a side, because this is ultimately what it has come down to. See you on the 13th of September and prepare your shields. So kind of all sounds like a bit like the film 300, doesn't it? It'd be a bit of a different turnout though if the English blokes all bore their shields. It wouldn't be like 300 where all these massive muscle bosuns with rippling abs and, you know, this what's the word? Can't even think of it, you know. Glossy skin. It'd be a lot of pasty face blokes, beer bellies, and sweating quite a lot. But there you go. Anyway, so he's talking about this event. Dun dun dun. The UK's biggest free speech festival, September the 13th. And I think they're suggesting heading from Waterloo Station to Parliament Square, as I know many of us have done on various events, certainly during a medical narrative in the past. There's also a national demonstration against fascism on the same day. This is just pathetic, isn't it? I'm not here standing up for anyone or whatever. I'm kind of independent in all this. I know what's going on. Two ways you understand if someone is helpful in this fight. One, do they talk about Israel? I don't mean, you know, the people of Israel. I mean the way that the Rothschilds set up Israel as their front company off the back of the Balfour Treaty, with which to conduct or help their fellow merchants conduct their New World Order. If you're not talking about that and talking about, you know, Netanyahu who waves his wand and everyone jumps to it, you ain't much help. And the second thing is, if you're not talking about energy, vibration and frequency. I don't mean you good people. You might not even know what I'm talking about. I mean people that profess to be standing up for this great nation who don't even understand what energy, vibration and frequency is. And if you're out there wondering what it is, it's the way the merchants control us, folks, through a fear-based narrative put out through their Hollywood and mainstream media for the most part. So, but I did want to point out that it's still, whether you support Tommy or not, it's still just pathetic this way that everyone calls out his name. If someone's changed their name, isn't it just respectful to call them the name that they want to? Or I don't know, you might have a difference of opinion. I was just pointing out that there's this anti-fascism march on the same day. Now that would say that's an organised event, wouldn't you? Probably MI5, MI6, however it works. Because gathering in London for free speech is nothing about fascism, isn't it? It's not like a right-wing nationalist kind of thing. It's people that want to ask why this Lucy Connolly got, was it 3 years in prison? And this, you know, for just an off-the-cuff remark in the heat of a very awful moment when these children were taken away from us in terribly traumatizing, scary and frustrating circumstances, when your country is being invaded with, you know, what appears to be the full assistance of the government, but it goes deeper, folks, with this point of this video. You can understand someone letting off a Facebook remark in the billions of Facebook comments that are written every day many of them probably a lot worse, you can understand someone firing off an emotional comment, can't you? Yeah, so trying to equate people marching for free speech or gathering at a festival for free speech with right-wing nationalism is just a bit pathetic, isn't it? Anyway, so this is where it gets interesting, because I like Ant. We've had a little bit of communication in the past. He sends his love to my family, and not a super guy, right? Do these individuals you see out there, do they understand what's really going on, though? Because if you've got a problem and you don't address it at the root cause of the problem, then you're part of the problem, aren't you? And the root cause of this problem doesn't just go back to the Rothschilds or the Bauer family as they originally were. This goes back 6,000 years to the Babylonian woe. This is when the merchants took control of the money supply, folks. We'll come on and look at that. And just to highlight a point, this is allegedly a quote by Mayor Amschel Rothschild. It has been disputed whether he said it, but let's be honest. I care not who controls a nation's political affairs, so long as I control her currency. That is literally what we're seeing today, is it not? And if you haven't read The Babylonian Woe, if you're not a reader type person, it's quite a heavy read. But I'll give you... I came up with a short synopsis here on AI. The Babylonian Woe by David Assel is a scholarly exploration of the origins and impacts of monetary systems in ancient civilizations, particularly focusing on how banking practices, that's fractional reserve banking, that's lending money without it being backed by gold, folks, so money that doesn't exist, and the control of money issuance, that's just called, aka printing pieces of paper and putting numbers on them, shaped historical events. The book argues that as early as Babylonian times, a sophisticated monetary science existed. It's called money magic to the maniacs, folks. Manipulated by a secretive elite to influence the destinies of individuals, nations, empires, often leading to societal upheaval or collapse. Assel suggests that these early financial mechanisms were part of a far-reaching conspiracy by those controlling economic systems, fostering anti-authority sentiments to undermine rulers and gods, a pattern he traces from antiquity to modern times. The work is highly regarded as a critical study of economic history, emphasizing the enduring power of monetary control. So what is that? In simple, folks, it didn't used to be money or profit or usury, which is money lending. It didn't used to be gold backed or this backed or whatever, or as it is now, nothing backed. It used just to be cockle shells. It was a simple system of exchange, right? You come round my house and you paint my shed. I can't come round your house and paint your shed or whatever. So I go, Sid, there you go. There's 3 cockle shells there, mate. Take that away. You can exchange that anywhere in the nation, possibly even the adjoining nations, for the amount of work that equates to painting a shed. That's it. It might be that 3 cockle shells equal a chicken or half a goat or whatever. But that was all it was. It was a system of exchange. The merchants come along, the sociopathic, gaslighting, greedy, for the most part mentally unwell individuals, and they went, right, let's change that. Let's start lending out cockle shells to people, and we'll get interest when they pay these shells back, right? And then we'll start to convince people that their value doesn't lie in their goodness and their morality. It lies in how many cockle shells they can get under the bed, right? So you can see how the system changed to one of benevolence and community to one of greed. And then they said, well, look, why don't we back the cockle shells by gold and precious metal, and then we'll go into the castles, and we'll go into the churches, and we'll tell these religious leaders that their worth isn't looking after the people. Oh, no, 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 no. Their worth is like how much gold can they get in the cellar. And the merchants went alongside the leaders, the rulers, the emerging empires, and they put in this system of usury, of money, of money lending, money magic, which is printing money that physically, it's not backed by gold. It doesn't, as a value, it doesn't exist. And then as the empires pulled back, they'd left their systems in place, hadn't they? They'd left their central banking system. They'd left their Masonic organizations, their secret societies. They'd left their capitalism and materialism that everyone then subsequently buys into. So it may look like, we've pulled out, or the white man has pulled out of South Africa, but do you really think that? No. Was it like the first thing Nelson Mandela did? Rest in peace. I think he bought, 6 million or 60 million rands worth of fighter jets. Don't quote me on that, but you know what I'm saying. So, folks, can we got a lot of people watching? Can we get some likes and subscribes? You are not going to hear this on Saturday the 13th. No disrespect. I will try and go there, show my support. I'm not saying that gathering and showing strength and unity is not important. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is nobody there will know what they're talking about, with the exception of a limited few. And if you don't understand how the merchants are pulling the strings on everything, then we're not addressing the root cause, are we? So that's the money supply. Subsequently, look at the royal families of the world. Who do they serve? Come on. Themselves, isn't it? They have all that gold in the cellar because they don't argue with the merchants. When the merchants say push a medical narrative, Queenie, could you go on telly and there's your script? What do? They go and read that. They don't turn around and say, fuck off, I'm looking after my people. No, they just do what the merchants say, because that's how this hand-in-glove relationship has developed through the centuries. So, okay, moving on. Then we got the World Economic Forum. I will tie this back in, but World Economic Forum clears Klaus Schwab of wrongdoing. Well, of course it would, because Klaus Schwab is the World Economic Forum. So getting the World Economic Forum to investigate the World Economic Forum is a little bit like getting the neocons to investigate those events in New York and Washington 20 years ago, and conveniently neglecting to even consider Building 7. So a little bit silly, but also interesting for us here, because look, Davos organizer names BlackRock's Larry Fink as co-chair and moves to resolve dispute with the founder. So now, not only have you got a company there, BlackRock, that stands for Black Cube, Blackstone, that's the North Pole of Saturn. Back eons ago, folks, certainly in ancient mystery, but it's also alleged this was true, Saturn was our sun for a while. And we lived under this kind of purple haze that was pretty good in the northern hemisphere for growing plants and jungle and all this sort of thing, right? And your civilizations of old worship Saturn. And because these Babylonian maniacs come of old, it's alleged they still worship Saturn, aka Satan, and they symbolize this by having this black cube everywhere. Like at Mecca, they have it to show that they control religion. When you pass out of university, you wear this black square on your head. That's them saying, you really think you're educated? You know, get yourself comfortable and get your popcorn ready for the New World Order. You get the black cube, don't you? Donald Trump, on one of his Trump Towers, it's the black cube on top. You get it at places, is it Wall Street and such places? It's just all symbolism. So that's that. So not only that, but BlackRock are the single biggest financial interest company on the planet, are they not? And they have control shares in every single company floated on the stock market. And these are the merchants, folks. All this lot are in the same network. When you look at your medical narrative, the medical nonsense, when you look at buildings that fall out the sky, when you look at illegal invasions of other people's countries that happen to have a lot of opium and lithium for the electric car batteries, is all the same. Do you get what I'm saying? And if you're not prepared to address this, then you can march or meet or festival as much as you want in London. You're not doing your fellow English person or Scottish, Welsh, Irish, whatever. You're not doing them you're not doing them justice. Dun dun dun. And then of course it gets deeper, because this lot have their tentacles into everything through the groups like the Fabian Society. Fabian Society, a historical push for social reforms, aka communism, often aligned with globalist and multicultural agendas, argue to undermine British cultural cohesion by promoting open immigration policies. This is not just Keir Starmer, who's a bit incompetent with stopping the old dinghies, is it? Now you're starting to see this goes much deeper. This lot have been at it for 8,000 years. Us British Knights, we've got to sort of get a bit up to speed with all of this, including lax enforcement against illegal immigration, which some claim strain public resources and erodes national identity. Of course, and there's so many reasons that the dark network do this, folks. Not least of which, when this whole country is destroyed and everyone's scrabbling around trying to make a buck outside of AI and their jobs gone to robots, you're going to accept national minimum wage, aren't you? You're going to, you're going to accept social credit rather. Because if they say to you, hey, Chris, look, you can sit on your ass at home in your little bubble being hateful on Facebook all day long, and we're going to pay you 22 grand a year. Oh, it's fucking all right, isn't it? Rather do that. I'd rather do that than I actually would rather do that than go and have a job. I wouldn't be doing the Facebook stuff, because what comes out your keyboard represents where you are at in life, doesn't it? Not the person that you're attacking. But you get what I'm saying. There's so many reasons and facets in the dark networks plan. Social control, division, keeping people massively in their ego. Have you noticed it don't matter how many tattoos a person gets, they can still end up with a pretty low opinion of themselves and mental health issues. Lad, fairly recently, veteran, covered head to toe, took his own life. Do you know what I'm saying? They want that. They want people to be in the ego, relating to their personal identity rather than connecting with spirit, which ultimately. I don't know if it will save us all, but it will certainly save you and me. So yes, moving on, then you get these. So not just the Fabian Society folks who are they've sort of pervaded British politics, not just the Labour Party. I think anyone can be a Fabian, but this is your sort of Tony Blair, Tony the toilet cleaner, taking us into Iraq despite an estimated 1 million people marching in London. But then you've also got organisations like the Behavioural Insights Team, or the Nudge Unit, established in 2010, aims to influence behaviour through subtle interventions based on behavioural science. So basically, gaslighting and fear, folks. Who do we know loves to gaslight and fear? Well, who owns Hollywood? The dark network again, isn't it? Who owns the mainstream news channels? The dun dun dun. This is your 9 o'clock delivery of fear. Ignoring the fact how many people have helped old ladies across the road in that day, and then going to some, mudslide in Nicaragua. It's something that's never going to affect you in a place you're never going to visit. In fact, most people wouldn't even be able to point out on the map. When were they big with their fear narrative? It was during a certain era, wasn't it? During a certain medical thing. So this is the Nudge Unit. This again is just the tentacles of the dark network, folks. And who heads up the Nudge Unit in the UK? It's this chap, David Solomon Halpern. And in a 2023 interview with The Telegraph, he proposed that through his unit's measures, the public were now well drilled for future emergencies, going on to suggest that using fear was a useful tool if you think people are wrongly calibrated. Subject to fear, folks, I'm going over to locals. Look, there's our locals URL, because there's stuff here I just can't talk about on certain platforms. I'm going to go to locals in a minute, and we can have a free-for-all over there. Folks, locals is free to join. I have got paying supporters over there who help keep the channel going, and I do videos especially for them, so you know. But this video will be for everyone. Because we're going to talk about a certain chap called Fauci, who not a lot of people know, headed up a certain campaign. And you're all going to say, oh, Chris, it was the Scovy-Dovey. We remember that. No. It was the one with the icebergs. AIDS and HIV. Yes, same guy. When you can understand the science behind well-being, along with the fear that they attach to it, then you'll understand another way that we're all being gaslit. So, here's someone talking about a lawsuit against BlackRock. Federal judge greenlights lawsuit against BlackRock, the sister ship Vanguard, and State Street for shutting down US energy. Let's just see what she's got to say.
BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street just lost a major court ruling today in federal court, and a federal judge in Texas agreed that they can be sued. The lawsuit says that they formed an investment cartel to control U.S. energy markets. They allegedly bought up coal companies just to shut them down and force green energy initiatives, all while jacking up prices and pushing ESG policies that nobody voted for. If you don't know what an ESG policy is, it's environmental, social, and governance. Now pause.
I'll stop it there, folks, because you get the idea. This is all your green agenda, your Agenda 21, Agenda 30, and all this kind of stuff. They're all working together, and they're all writing the script. I'm not saying we should destroy the planet. I'm just saying, you've got to be aware of this stuff. So, slight different turn here. The old Saturnists, the dark network, they love their debauchery, don't they? This all goes back to a belief in Old Testament, literally taking scripture literally, which I don't suggest anyone does, because it won't it'll just sound like a load of nonsense, and you're missing the crucial message behind it. But have you noticed on there, with their plans to keep everyone, or just keep increasing the amount of people in Sodom and Gomorrah, they own the porn industry, utter fucking filth and depravity. They control all the media, and they want everyone living in dark energy. It's not hard. It's not easy, is it, to live in good energy if you're feeling like depraved. As such, they have their symbolism everywhere. This is the new symbol for the Eurovision. You might have noticed more and more and more as the years go on, the Eurovision just becomes utter squalid, sordid, sodomizing cesspit, does it not? That UK act, where it was a load of boys in a boxing gym, bumming each other in the showers, it begs believe, does it not? For the public, it just goes over their heads, doesn't it? They don't get it. Nice bunch of boys, they're playing horses in the showers in a boxing gym. It's art, isn't it? Yeah. You probably think Sam Smith's Teletubby boots is the same. But the reason I flagged this up, folks, I may be, this might be a bit of a reach, but if you look at the international symbols, this is the FBI. I've got to be careful what I say. I'll say more on locals, folks, but this is the symbols that are used by the network, let's say, around children, that dark network. This is what I think it was the FBI uncovered in Sacramento. They uncovered the fact that this dark network used symbols in the media to symbolize their intentions. Again, I'm being careful what I said here, but this symbol here is for people who, in general, they call it love the smalls, but love is a euphemism for abuse, isn't it? Severe abuse at that. And you got another couple here, and you can see this in quite a lot of films. If you've seen the latest Elvis movie, all about Elvis's life and his relationship with, was it Colonel Tom? So if you look right at the beginning, where it's got the kind of kaleidoscope effect, you can see this symbolism in Hollywood's sort of artwork. And yeah, it's like I say, I would say I'm not accusing Eurovision of anything, but let's be honest, it's not like they haven't it's not like they haven't laid themselves open for it with blatantly where the show is going, trying to control the British public and make perversion normal. Hey ho. And again, just look at the music industry now. How can you not see? And I'm not frustrated here, folks. I don't really care. I remember going to Glastonbury and wondering why all the stages had horns attached to them. And I wasn't stupid because I was quite awake by then. You when you're standing at a pyramid stage, you'd have to be a bit blind to not understand the symbolism going on. But is there a point where this will go beyond such a joke that almost you can't help but notice it? I don't know. I'm not holding out my, I'm not holding out much hope. And then this brings me on to this. So this is all relevant, folks, to the Ant Middleton, Tommy Robinson, the Freedom March, etc., etc. But George Orwell wrote these books, didn't he? He wrote Animal Farm, which people thought was a kind of critique of like Russian communism. But what we now know is just a critique of the insidious kind of drip of communism into society worldwide through various mechanisms like the Fabian Society, like the Nudge Unit, etc., etc. And he wrote 1984, didn't he, which was a horrific portrayal of living under totalitarianism. And do you remember during the medical nonsense, people went outside on their front step and they banged pots and pans, didn't they? And in 1984, they had the 3 minutes of hate where all the public went outside and they just jeered hate at certain figures who were going contra to the party narrative. Well, why was he allowed to write these books and why were they published? You've got to remember the network, folks, they own all the publishing companies. This is why J.K. Rowling and Stephen King get like hundreds of thousands advances for their work. And authors like me, we hardly, I think I got 200 quid for my first memoir. It's because they're cherry picking everything. They're cherry picking the narrative. They cherry pick the books they want in front of you. So why would they cherry pick a book that basically tells you what they're doing? And 1984 basically tells you how it's going to end up. Well, they do it because George, or Eric Blair as his real name was, he neglected one vital ingredient, didn't he, in his books? The antidote, how you stop this happening. And this is what I very much doubt is going to be being discussed in London. And I don't mean to self-aggrandizing folks or whatever. I'm not important. If you think I am, you misunderstood. You've kind of misunderstood something along the line, because we are all just one energy. And what George Orwell failed to point out is this dark network, they're controlling people through energy, vibration and frequency. Just like Tesla said, if you want to know the answers to life, this is the way you've got to think. And apologies if you've seen this before, but you've got your third dimension. This is your lower consciousness. This is your, go to work, 9 to 5, come back, fish and chips in front of the BBC News. Don't question everything. The professionals always know what they're doing, and all your politicians, they only do that job because they love you, right? It's called being in the matrix, isn't it? What a lot of people don't understand, though, is that when you're awake, you're still in the matrix. When you realise that medical narratives are a bit hooky, or buildings don't fall out the sky, or there isn't a bogeyman that can jump from person to person to person. There just physically isn't. It doesn't work that way. Or that certain interventions, if we call them, are utterly futile, because if the bogeyman doesn't exist, how can you have an intervention against the bogeyman, right? This is the level of gaslighting that we're facing. But when you realise these narratives don't kind of make sense, it just makes you awake. But you're awake in the matrix, and you're looking for your next false idol that's going to get you out of it and get you into the promised land. And this is why certain people, and I don't want to say any names here, get such massive following, is that the people who are in the matrix, they think, if we can just get that nice Donald Trump in, he's going to fix everything. And I'm not saying he hasn't probably fixed a whole load of good stuff, folks. I don't mean that. What I mean is, still very limited, aren't you? If you're not, remember what I said, if you're not talking in terms of energy, vibration and frequency, and you're not calling out, the controllers, how much help are you really doing? So how do you change this? And who do you do it for? Because when you look at the landscape, it is great people are waking up, albeit they haven't made this leap here to enlighten consciousness. This is when you hear about enlightenment, folks. I used to think enlightenment, like I had no idea what it was. I thought it was about like monks up a mountain chanting, and that they all knew something that I could never possibly know, or they had the discipline. And it's not that. It's just new consciousness is when you realize there is only one system in play here. It's called the all, the everything. Here it's referred to as oneness. There's only one system of energy. It's called the whole universe, and God is intrinsic in it, not a separate entity that you give your power to. Because by doing that, the whole system fails. Once you realize that we're all a microcosm, we're like a fractal representation of the divine, then you realize your power. And if you look at any scripture, and we're not talking religion here, folks, you've got to get that out of your head. Understanding enlightenment, you're never going to get this in church. The function of a church, and sorry if this offends you, is to keep you in the dark, literally. At the Vatican, they have a pine cone, don't they? Massive statue of a pine cone. They don't tell you that represents the pineal gland, where you have epiphanies, where you see the light. Remember, energy, vibration and frequency comes in light, light form. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that at the bottom of the pine cone there's a coffin, because in ancient mythology you were considered dead until you got it. So all the people out there that are awake, the great awakening, in spiritual terms are all still considered dead. And why? Because to ascend, you have to overcome the material self. You have to overcome the ego. People get this wrong. They think ego is people that are showing off about their car and all. That's not what ego means in this sense. Ego means that you have to understand you're not the only thing in control in here. And once you overcome your five senses and accept that there's a bigger picture of which you're intrinsically a part, the divine, then you enter your paradise on earth, or you ascend. In scripture, Jesus said, let thine eye be single. And this is allegory now, folks. If you're asking me, did a guy called Jesus exist? I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm talking about, this is code. Jesus is the pineal gland. And when you read about Jesus, you're reading about your emotions, your actions, your biochemical mechanism that takes place inside you through your endocrine glands, which either come up with the goods, the serotonin and the DMT, and make you feel like you are in paradise on earth, or they don't. And so, let thine eye be single and thy body will fill with light is a reference to opening your pineal gland, isn't it? Going into the upper room and sitting on the right hand side of God is allegory for sending your energy to your pineal and your pituitary, which acts as a torus field, and as such entering, finding your paradise. The same with Adam and Eve went east of Eden, same allegory. Same with Jesus cast the net on the right hand side. It's talking about the right hemisphere of the brain, a place where not many people get to experience, where your peace, your love, your kindness and your empathy lies. If you don't believe me, just go in any internet forum, any Facebook post, and look at the hate-filled comments of the 99%. That 99% of people think it's perfectly okay to leave comments about someone they've never met in a manner that could easily push that person to suicide. And then they walk away and have their fish and chips. Do you know what I mean? So, yes. So, there you go. That's it. New consciousness. And does it mean that it doesn't help having gathering? No, I'm not saying that at all. Don't misquote me. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, yes, it's good to raise awareness. It's good to show solidarity against the destruction this nation is facing. But that's just one part. That's the material part. The equally a bigger understanding that we need is how are the merchants controlling us? Primarily through the money supply, and then equally through energy, vibration and frequency, through making people feel, second best, locked in their ego, second rate, going along with whatever narrative the BBC comes up with next, because they live in fear and ignorance, and aspiring their whole life to getting that second home or a Ferrari, none of which will get you into paradise on earth. Just look at the amount of rock stars that overdosed or took their own life. You know what I'm saying. So that's it. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to leave. Feel free to what am I saying? Feel free to leave a comment below, folks. Remember, keep your comments full of love, peace, kindness, and empathy. Don't fucking address them to me, folks, because it's just my admin will just block you from the channel before I even get a chance to see it. We don't need people that are battling childhood trauma, that don't realise it, don't do anything to address it, and instead they go on the internet and just attack everyone else. It's honestly not helpful. And that's it. And I'm going to go over to Locals. Thanks to everyone that supports us on Locals or Patreon or has become a YouTube member. And once again, massive thank you to everyone that supported my upcoming Everest Summit. You legends. That's it. I'll see you soon. Much love.